lose your authenticity. You don't know who you are when you are constantly trying to figure out this metric of performance. You will do things and you will say things and you will show up in ways that are not you. And that starts to wear on you after a long while. The whole goal of self-esteem and the whole goal of getting to a place where you truly like yourself is that when that stuff comes in, it just bounces off you.
Let me introduce you guys to Sarah. I mean, what would this be if it wasn't a little bit of an adventure? So I'm just going to read a couple little blurbs that you sent over to me. Sarah Dawn is a dating and relationship coach for high achieving men. I found this always good to weave high achieving into any promotional type material, right? Helping driven men build authentic, lasting relationships without games or gimmicks. And you do indeed do that. I really like that approach. And you say for over a decade, you've helped high performing men, executives, entrepreneurs, and analytical thinkers. Analytical thinkers can be the toughest ones of all. They think too much. Break free from self-sabotage, dating patterns, and build deeply connected, emotionally fulfilling relationships. So, Sarah Dawn, how did you get started working with men, and how did that lead to you being kind of a YouTube celebrity? How'd that all come about?
It's a great question. I'm kind of asking myself how this all happened. Um, but it started for me, obviously, I think every coach and every therapist, anybody who goes through some sort of significant time in their life, and does a pretty serious self-reflection, comes to the point where, right, things have to change. So for me, it started with my own failed relationship, right? I was headed down the aisle about 6 days before, and my fiance came to me at the time and said, I think that we should not do this. I think that there's some
Mm,
things that we need to potentially work through. And this hadn't been the first time that I had kind of experienced a failure to launch, a relationship pattern that was starting to become really evident in my own life. And so I went down really just this path of trying to figure out what was happening. Why were these patterns repeating? And you and I have talked about before that I found the likes of Pia Melody. Unfortunately, she passed away last week. I don't know if you've heard,
oh, I
but
did not know that.
yeah. So, just through pain, obviously, and through self-reflection is kind of when I say pain is the greatest impetus for change, right?
Mhm.
You come to the point where you can either keep going or you can realize that this really sucks and pain is not the best place to be in. And I really didn't want to keep repeating the same mistakes that the women, particularly in my family of origin, were repeating. This kind of like bitter um, disposition towards men and multiple marriages, multiple failures. So I pretty much said, this is it. I'm stopping. And I checked myself into basically, it's called an IOP. Basically a treatment center for just codependency
Mm.
and, AKA falling in love with my alcoholic father over and over again in the form of a relationship. So once I kind of figured that out, and did a lot of the inner work on myself. I do have four older brothers, and mine was the relationship that toppled first, right? Like it kind of all started with me, and everyone kind of thought it was just a one-off. Like, oh, Sarah, she's always been a Leo. She's always had a strong personality. It might just be her. And then I started noticing my brothers one by one, divorce, uh, married my mother, and so these patterns just like kept repeating. And I have a science background. So I thought this is very interesting, very fascinating that these patterns just keep on repeating. And that's when I found the works of you, when I got really into, just deep into the work of attachment, understanding the dynamics that were at play that really had me set up for failure and have most of us set up for failure with regards to relationships. And until we kind of take a step back and say, what is this? What's this happening? What's happening underneath the surface here with all of this? Why am I doing this? That's really what came to me as this revelation that more people need to know about this. If more people understood this at a deeper level and really could meet themselves, then maybe I could potentially make some changes that would help myself. And then I just share my experience, strength, and hope with people to give them, the tools to not make the same mistakes.
I love your story, and I'm it's so relatable, and mine is similar. My second wife basically said, "If you don't go get help, I'm divorcing you," and
Mhm.
so I thought, well, you're the one that's unhappy all the time, and I'm always trying to make you happy. All right, I'll go get help. Best thing that ever happened to me. And then the more I started working on me, I was a therapist already. I started noticing all the guys coming with the same thing I say. I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I treat my wife better than her ex. I'm raising her kids. I give her everything she wants. It's never enough. She's never happy. She never wants to have sex anymore. So it is interesting that once you start working on yourself, one of the key pieces is you find out you're not alone. You're not terminally
Mhm.
unique. You're not the only one that struggles with this codependency or being attracted to the wrong kind of people or co-creating the relationships we had with our parents over and over and over again. So I want to ask you something. I'm really I pay a lot of attention to words because I think our
Mhm.
words mean a lot, and we often use a lot of emotionally laden words. Like guys will say, "Well, she shot me down," or she got all pissed off, or they blew up on me. One of the words I picked up for you used failure a couple of times, and I've been working
Mhm.
with marriages for over 40 years. I've been married twice. I actually prefer, I don't like the word failure when it comes to relationship. I'm not
Mhm.
sure maybe the only failures is our failure to learn from our
Mhm.
relationships. I'm not actually sure that, pair bonded sexual relationships with a member of the opposite sex are supposed to go on forever. I mean, David
Mhm.
Snarch says in every relationship, somebody's going to get left. Statistically, odds are whatever relationship we're in is going to end. Now, it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that one of us is broken or one of us messed up. Just statistically, that's how it is. And I'm wondering if we can get away from seeing relationships not working out. Maybe that relationship that ended 6 days before you're supposed to get married was a resounding success because you learned exactly what you were supposed to learn. It got your attention in just the right way. And I've actually,
100%.
I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but I'm playing with the idea that maybe, just maybe, that we're living lives of fate and that maybe even our mistakes were an important part of the process and the journey we're on and the direction we're going. And without those mistakes, we wouldn't be right where we are, and all of us are right where we're supposed to be. So,
Mhm. Well, see, but when you grow up with a kind of a shame-based core,
me too.
right? When you grow up with and this is why, high achieving men or men, I would say a lot of men, it doesn't matter if you're high achieving or not. Um, when you're growing up with a single mom, growing up with a single dad, right? Like there's this feeling that you really just want to do good, right? You start to put these metrics on yourself that are I'm good or I'm bad.
Yeah.
And that is the paradigm that you start to behave in, that you start to live in. So, I'm not surprised. Thank you for picking that up. I'm not surprised that that's still there. My therapist will have a heyday with that one. But it's really just for me, the reflection that's where I was at, right? I was anxious. I was constantly comparing myself to others. I was constantly looking at the trajectory of my life, and that is
Hmm.
how I measured my uh, again, like that's how I measured my success was,
And
did this work or it
your
didn't
okayness.
work?
Yeah. Am I
Yeah,
okay? Am I good?
right. And if you're okay, I'm okay, and if you're not okay, I'm not okay. Like, So at this point, you're right, guys. There is, for me, I think it's a failure if you don't take the pain or the situation that you're in and do something with it. And
I
I would
love that.
consider that as a, a, a missed opportunity to launch yourself into a new stratosphere, a missed opportunity to look at yourself and look at the other person or whomever the situation is and say, what could I have done differently that might have alleviated some of I really like to call it peace at this point in my life. Like, was I detracting from the peace or was I adding to the chaos?
Yeah. Yeah, I never do that. Let's talk about that self-judgment thing that you brought up, the shame, the
Hmm.
measuring of ourself. I again, I've been working with men and women relationship wise for 40 years and for the last 20 years, almost completely with men. And it sounds like you mostly work with men as well. And a pattern I've seen in men is this pattern, and it seems pretty widespread, to judge themselves by their apparent relationship success. So I see men judging themselves if they've never had a girlfriend. I'm a loser. I don't have a girlfriend. I've never had a girlfriend, or I've never had sex, never gotten laid. I must be a loser. All women can see that, so it proves I'm a loser. Or if the relationships don't tend to last very long. They get in and they go 3, 4, 6 months and they're done. And it's a repeated pattern of that. I can't even maintain a long-term relationship. What's wrong with me? Or guys, you have a divorce or two. I'm such a failure. I'm such a loser. I've been divorced. Everybody can see what a loser I am. So, two questions. Do you see the same pattern in men of men judging themselves, their self-worth, their value as a human being based on their ability to attract a high quality woman, a desirable woman, and keep her forever? And how does that actually work against us? And what might be, I guess, three questions. What might be a better way to view ourselves rather than on our seeming lack of failure at relationship?
Okay. So this
I,
is
I,
might
I
be
can
a
re I can
this
remind
might
you
be
of
a
the three questions if I need to.
yeah. So this is a complicated answer because usually typically the men that present to me have varying degrees of shame, but shame also can be perceived as a little bit more of the nice guy, right? I degrade myself because my self-esteem is so low and because I don't have enough, really like enough of the foundation that's built. So when a message comes in or when they receive something from the world that reinforces that message, they spiral down into the depths of I'm not good enough. I suck. This is terrible. I'm a failure, right? All of the
I
negative,
will always suck. I'll always be
whatever
terrible.
blocking beliefs come in, then you reinforce them by, flexing your muscle every time that thought comes in, and the thoughts and the beliefs just become stronger and stronger and stronger. Now, other types of men that might present to me on the other side of that, still with a shame core, but have overcompensated greatly by their careers, by going out and achieving. So their ego is a little bit stronger, but it's also just a presentation of masculinity. It's not necessarily real. There is still a low self-esteem that is underneath there. And if you poke it just a little bit, typically it tends to fall apart. So shame can be undercompensated and overcompensated when they come in. And as a woman who has done this work, and when I was dating and when I was in the field, I was able to kind of pick up on those overcompensations or those strategies that men use to employ that over here on the egotistical side they usually are putting men down, they're putting others down, they think that they're tough, they think that their shit doesn't stink. So it's really kind of it kind of ebbs and flows, but really the core of this is that I have not there's no foundation of true self-worth and self-value. So I either have to put others down or I look at other people and I admire them. And really, that's a flawed system, because you're always going to be comparatively judging people and or putting yourself at this level of metric that you'll never be able to meet. And I think that men and society today, unfortunately, I feel for you guys, because it is so based on performance and protecting and providing. And you're given these messages every single freaking day from a little boy, that if you don't amount to shit if you're not doing this or doing that. And I feel for you on that, because I think we just give the wrong message as a society to men in general. So that's where you kind of have to figure out where you're at. You kind of
Yeah.
have to look at, like, where are you in this, and what is your thought process that comes in. I can tell you for myself that I was always, for me, it was more so I was below everyone else and everybody was better than me. I just couldn't, I missed the keys to the life. Like, I couldn't
Right.
figure it out. And so I would continuously strive to be something that I thought I was supposed to be. But unfortunately, what happens with that is that you lose your authenticity. You don't know who you are when you are constantly trying to figure out this metric of performance. You will do things and you will say things and you will show up in ways that are not you, and that starts to wear on you after a long while. The whole goal of self-esteem, and the whole goal of getting to a place where you truly like yourself, is that when that stuff comes in, it just bounces off you. She didn't like me.
Well,
Oh well, I'll find someone else that is a better match. My boss yelled at me for this. You don't go down that spiraling death elevator that takes you down to hell, that basically, and then you get stuck there and you're in this depressive state and all of that. So sorry, that was an
no,
answer
that's
one
beautiful.
question. How many other questions are
So
there?
so I'll bring question two in to just feed off of what you said. So that shame dynamic is a big piece. No More Mr. Nice Guy. A lot of that was about writing about shame being a core component of nice guy syndrome, that feeling like I'm not good enough and I got to get external validation to feel good enough. And for a lot of guys, well, if I get a pretty woman and or have lots of pretty women or have lots of sex, then I'm good enough. But as you know, that doesn't make the shame go away. So what do you do with helping men? Because as you say, they walk in
Mm-hmm.
and they're either shame-based, they're judging themselves, shame-based, judging everybody else. Which
Mm-hmm.
one's harder to work with? I'm asking multiple questions. Which one's harder to work with? And how do you work with each of those types to help them begin both releasing shame and accepting themselves as a perfectly imperfect human being?
It's a lot of work. Actually, it's complicated,
I
but
do
I
know
will.
that. I know it's
I'll
a lot of work.
and it takes a lot of time. So first of all, the ones that struggle the most are the ones that have a bit of an inflated ego, because, well, usually not a lot of people have challenged them, and when they do, there's a lot of pushback, and they've been able to use their looks or their money or their status or their ability to get what they want in life. And you come in and you start to push on that a little bit and start to disassemble their ideas of what, high value is, what success looks like. They're having terrible relationships with women, so they don't understand. They want help, but they don't understand why. But then you start to kind of push on that a little bit, and a lot of times their ego kind of collapses. They have a really hard time with accepting that they may not know exact who they are. Like, their shit does in fact stink. So I actually, for preference, I prefer working with men who I can help build up, who I can help understand. First, it's about understanding the messages that you received in your childhood, in your family of origin, and really breaking them down. Because a lot of the messages that we received in the background that we come from will kind of set the stage for how we're walking through life, and the thoughts that we have and the emotions that we experience, and all of those things. So really really like deconstructing what messages did you really hear, and was that really true? Or was your dad just a total dick? And like he wasn't who you thought he was. And so it's like kind of sometimes breaking the fantasy or the idea in their head that like there was nothing wrong with my childhood, or maybe the messages that you received were just not true. And so then you have to start to reconstruct their identity based off of them figuring out, who the fuck am I?
Yeah.
Who am I? Like, what do I like to do? What is my value system? How do I I get up, and it's a simple thing, right? Like this Jordan Peterson came out with like just make your bed, right? It has to start small. It does have to start with I got to go to the gym. I got to start taking care of myself. I have to say no once in a while if I don't want to do this thing. I got to figure out like, do I really like to golf, or am I just doing that because all my coworkers like to do that? A lot of times, what you find is, and also the self-esteem. A lot of times, people are looking for red cars everywhere to confirm their biases. You have to start reorienting them to let's look for the blue cars. Like, let's look for the opposite of the information and really check if it's your reality, or is this all just made up in your head? And going through that process, and really that's what the role of a coach and a good therapist is having that person there. Potentially it might be the first relationship that you've had that hasn't been super toxic, or that hasn't been, it's been different than your family of origin. It's been different. Like this brotherhood right now, like you guys are here and you're realizing like, oh, there's actually healthy men who are going to build me up. And there's actually healthy women who are going to be able to have a deep conversation with you, and who are going to show you how to co-regulate and build you up, rather than your whole life you've just been torn down over and over and over again. So it's a co-created relationship, as you know, to help these guys really start to ascertain who they are, what their true value is, and start to respect themselves. And only then can you have a relationship that is somewhat high functioning.
I love it because I'm listening to you and I love everything you're saying. And I can just imagine these guys, you watch you on YouTube, come sign up for your coaching. They're thinking, she's going to help me get a high value woman. She's going to help me get laid. She's going to help
Yeah.
me,
Then
spin
I bust
plates
him
and
up
get, and then we go, no, we're going to talk about shame.
nope.
We're going to rebuild your entire identity because the one you have is false, but we're going to help you get back to your real. I can relate to it
Pretty
because,
much. It's a lifelong, it really is a lifelong prospect, just the understanding our attachments, understanding what happens when we get triggered, you know, who we're a good match for with when it comes to dating, and how do we know that we're in a good relationship? And you're constantly, if you're human, you're gonna experience emotion.
oh,
Like
okay.
that's it. Like you're gonna experience, and there's still times when I'm going, where'd that come from? That's interesting. That's
Yeah, that's been in
not
there
quite
for the
sure.
last X number of years.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Well, let's keep unfolding this because I'm
Hmm.
always kind of whenever I do these interviews, I'm on the clock because I know I'm going to hand it over to the guys, and so my clock's ticking of how much time I have with you. So I know you identify probably from watching your YouTube, and
Hmm.
you've interviewed me a couple of times. You know, a lot of this is men wanting to date and date successfully and
Hmm.
get the kind of women they want to get. One of the things I've found as a relationship therapist, as I started learning how to teach guys to date when I was in my late 40s and 50s, when I got divorced and was single for the first time in my adult life, and I had to learn how to date, and I got good enough at it. Guys asked me to teach them what I was doing. I go, I'm not a dating coach. But one of the things I found out is that as a relationship coach, and I even have a series of podcasts that I did on dating skills for married men for a few reasons. Number one, I think it's good to know if you're in a committed long term relationship. It's good to know if it ended, you'd be all right. You can still go out and date. You're not going to be toast. So you don't hang on way too long or try way too hard to make something work that shouldn't work. But also all the things that I'm sure you teach single men about attracting the kind of women they want, those are all the very same things that men in long-term relationships should also be living in their life as well. I'm just guessing. So what, just so that, the guys on this call in a relationship don't think this is all going to be just about, how to get a
Mhm.
girlfriend or how to get laid. What would you say are two or three core dating skills men in long-term relationship need to be practicing?
Oh gosh, I mean, understanding the role that the masculine plays, the masculine and the feminine roles that and the power that you have to lead and co-create a relationship that a woman just wants to bang your brains out. There's a lot of guys that come to me that are married and that are looking for advice. And so many times they're afraid to have the difficult conversations. They're
Mm,
afraid to not just assert boundaries, but they you have to know yourself really, really, really well. And part of my program, I have no interest in teaching men how to be men. I'm like, I'm out of my league on that. But what I try to do with the men that come to me is how is a woman experiencing you? How is she experiencing you when you walk in the door? What type of things are you doing that is inviting her into a space where she is receptive to your leadership? But you have to know how to lead. You have to
yeah.
know, the things that make you a leader. And it's really about depth, like getting to know yourself at a deep level. And there are some married men that come to me and they have no idea, you know, that the thoughts that infiltrate their mind, are leading her to respond to you in a negative way. That every time you don't do something or set a boundary, it's like a chink in the armor. It's like a she starts to feel like a loss, or like I can't necessarily get. I don't know why I'm not attracted to him, but there's something just kind of missing. Every time that you have an emotion that goes unregulated and you're not able to talk about it, you create a level of unsafety. So it's really, let me like break it down to three things. One, it's understanding how the role of the masculine and feminine and really what those roles are, and the top characteristics that make that dynamic really, really powerful, and how do you embrace some of those characteristics that you are missing. Two is boundary formation. Some
Mm,
guys come to me and have absolutely zero clue what what is a boundary, and what do I need to be responsible for, and what does she need to be responsible for, and being able to kind of break those codependencies that you create typically in a long-term relationship if you're not really aware of them. And then three, it's co-regulation. It's how do I make her feel safe through myself, through my own nervous system? How do I bring her into a space where like a lot of times I will ask a guy, what does emotional safety mean to you? And they're like, huh? What do you mean? What does that mean? I don't know what that
mm,
means, because it's a very difficult concept, because we feel it at such a visceral level at every single minute where women are searching for emotional safety. But men usually, you guys are physically, you think about physically, like, well, I'm physically safe. I feel safe. What do you
yeah.
mean? I don't know what that experience is. So, really understanding those three things and how a woman experiences you, and then how to create some stability and just some awareness around some of those concepts will help you to create more safety, more stoicism, more stability within the within the relational paradigm with the man and the woman, which will lead to more peace, more sex, more love,
More
more
fun?
respect, more
Yeah.
fun. Yeah, like all of it will kind of lead you down. But if you're kind of out of control, if you don't understand your emotions, if you're not able to say to her, you know what, this is how I'm experiencing this feeling right now, or this is what's happening with me, and I need to explain this to you, and we need to have a conversation about this. A lot of that, it's either kind of like fight or flight. I either freak out or either shut down completely. And so it's about understanding yourself at a really deep level and understanding what is happening underneath the surface for you.
All right. I want
And
to do
making sure
something.
she's healthy too, because
Oh yeah.
it's not all your guys' responsibility. There are crazy women out there. So
Oh, there's crazy women out there. No, no, no. Yeah.